What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 495 of AskGSM here today for Wednesday, May 24th, 2023. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. A very busy wrestling weekend ahead. We got WWE Night of Champions coming up on Saturday afternoon. We have Double or Nothing on Sunday night. Airing opposite of that, NXT Battleground, which surprisingly I will be in. I say surprisingly because you're probably thinking, why the fuck would you go to an NXT show on the same night of Double or Nothing? I'm not really traveling too far out of the way to go to NXT. It's in Lowell, which is not far from me at all. I've been to plenty of NXT shows in Lowell, Ring of Honor shows, other wrestling shows in Lowell before, so it's a great wrestling city. It brings back memories of NXT, the brand being in that city in years past, so I'm looking forward to being there. Mr. Marcel will be joining me, so it's going to be a great time. I will be missing Double or Nothing live. If it was really any other circumstance, I would not be going to anything else but Double or Nothing, or just watching the show, rather. I'll be probably catching up on Sunday at some point on Monday. So I'm going to try to avoid spoilers the best I can. But I will be at NXT on Sunday night, so that should be a fun time. But if you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. Last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So let's get right into it here. Micah Does It from YouTube's got a couple of questions. First one being one of those crazy questions he's asked before. If you won $5 million from the lottery, what would be the first three things that you would do with all of that money? Are you still working or are you retiring? If I'm still writing, then I'm still working, which I'm never going to stop writing. So the answer is I will still be working regardless. It's a fucking problem I have. I just can't stop, and I enjoy it. It's not like I hate it, obviously. If I'm watching wrestling and doing other stuff, well, I will always be writing, recording, talking, producing content in some form or fashion. So I will never, ever truly stop working until the day I die, I'm sure. So no, I will never be officially fully retired. But that being said, what would I do with $5 million? That's such a, stupid amount of money in the sense that, I don't even know what I would do if I won, fucking $500,000. Aside from paying off, student loans and stuff like that, aside from, actual adulting and nonsense like that. Really, just stuff like that, I guess. I'm not saying I would. If it's $5 million, I don't need to go buy a mansion. I don't need to go buy, a fancy fucking car. I'm kind of content with what I have, honestly. Maybe make some, I don't need a second home or anything like that. I feel like that shit's kind of dumb. That's not really, to me, for me, it would be dumb. For other people, make your own choice. For me, that would be kind of silly. I don't need 5 cars. Honestly, just go on a nice trip somewhere, first of all. And I feel like the cliche, vague answer would be to save it. But I honestly only say that because I don't know what else I would do. I would totally go to... I would say I would go to, Mania, but I go to Mania every year anyway for work-related purposes. And I enjoy myself while there, but I'm already at WrestleMania. So it's not even I'd go WrestleMania. I guess. It's always a wrestling-related thing, of course, but, I would probably take a non-wrestling-related trip. That would be first and foremost. It's not often, if ever, that I really take a trip anywhere that isn't for some sort of wrestling-related purpose for, an extended period of time. So probably something along those lines. Where that would be, I don't know. I like Chicago. I would go back to Disneyland, Disney World. What's funny? I would say, because it seems so dumb, that Star Wars hotel they had, I think in Florida, I don't know if it was California, I'm pretty sure it was Florida, seems so ridiculously overpriced. But I would stay there just for the experience. The problem is that it's closing in September. They actually just recently announced its closure, so I guess that's off the list. But yeah, probably just, there's nothing that I've always wanted to buy that I just wouldn't be able to buy if I didn't have $5 million. I don't know, man. That's a good question. It's a popular question. Not that I get asked a lot, but a question that people often ponder. Oh, what would you do with $1 million? What would you do with $5 million? I honestly have no fucking clue. Aside from going on a nice trip somewhere for an extended period of time and taking a bit of a break from the wrestling stuff and just everything in general, I don't know, man. I'm not really sure. That's a good question. Probably just, I don't know, go out for a nice dinner or something like that, and then just figure out the rest as each day progresses. Let's just put it that way, I guess. Their second question: if Seth Rollins wins the World Championship in Night of Champions, who should be the first challenger for the title? That's a good question. Raw doesn't really have a lot of strong heels. Bronson Reed is great, but he's still in the process of being built up. So Bronson at some point would be cool, but he's not going to win, and he's not quite at that point yet where it makes sense to have him challenge for the World Championship if he wasn't even in a fucking qualifier. So, like, The Miz, who gives a shit about The Miz at this point? Rollins already beat Balor. We haven't really gotten a full-fledged feud yet between Finn Balor and Seth Rollins. That could be an option. I feel like we've seen it enough in the last couple of years, and we just got the match on Raw a couple of weeks ago, that I wouldn't really dive right into that. That's an option. Gunther you build to for later on in the year. I assume he's retaining the Intercontinental Championship anyway at Night of Champions, so it's not even really like it's an option unless he goes for the championship while still Intercontinental Champion, which is possible, but I would rather they not do that. Brock is an option. I would not do Brock. We've seen Rollins and Brock a handful of times. No thanks. Honestly, the name that I keep going back to is Damian Priest. So not that he's incredibly over or anything like that, but, you know, he really benefited, I think, from the Bad Bunny match. I mean, I understand you can also make the argument, how can you take the guy seriously from a viewer standpoint? He just lost the Bad Bunny at Backlash. I get that, but the program itself, I would say, was a success. They had a great match. He's been on Raw consistently since then. He's in the midst of a mini feud right now with Shinsuke Nakamura. I would have him beat Shinsuke, maybe rack up another win on Raw, and I feel like he would be a good first opponent for Rollins. They could have some really good matches. Priest could benefit from working with someone that's over, showcase him as a main event talent, and maybe if he does well and if he gets over and people take to him, you can revisit him in the world title picture at some point down the road. So honestly, looking at the Raw roster, the name I keep going back to is Priest, because either other people I don't want to see in that spot or just aren't ready to be in that spot yet. So Priest, to me, would be that answer. Priest is another guy you can also build up, but I would rather see Priest in the top title picture first before Gunther or Bronson Reed, given where they currently are on the card. His next question: on the channel, you have a ton of interviews with WWE wrestlers. Who is one wrestler that you're still hoping to have an interview with that you haven't gotten the interview or haven't gotten the opportunity to yet? I think I've answered this question before. I put together a list almost exactly 2 years ago. And I've been doing interviews for like the last 10 plus years, but I really took it up a notch during COVID in like April of 2020. I've talked about this before. And from that point forward, I think I've done close to 300 interviews since April of 2020 up until now. I actually just talked to the NXT champion Carmelo Hayes like literally less than an hour ago. Not the first time, won't be the last time. He's amazing. He's a great guy. But yeah, as far as people I've always wanted to talk to, the people on that bucket list, I think I've knocked off over half of the people on that list. And the people still remaining, I'm pretty sure, there's 4 people on my bucket list of interviews, non-wrestling related and wrestling related, that I always wanted to talk to. And among those people that still remain are Batista, Christopher Lloyd is the only non-wrestling name on that list, Christopher Lloyd, Batista, Randy Orton, and Jesus Christ, who's the last one? Oh, The Rock, of course. So if you're only talking about talent in the company currently, I mean, Orton's not even active right now, but Orton's still in the company. It would be Randy Orton. My biggest interview that I would love to have is The Rock, which, is it likely? No. I mean, The Rock's the busiest man ever, and he doesn't do a lot of media. The Rock is the fucking Rock. But just to talk to him, interact with him in any capacity in the form of an interview would be pretty fucking cool. That's kind of like the holy grail of interviews for me as far as like what I never really think. And not that it's completely impossible, but it's pretty hard to achieve, especially for someone like me who isn't a big deal at all. I mean, Chris Van Vliet's like the best guy, the best wrestling interviewer I would say out there. The fact that he's talked to him like 7 times is hardly surprising. The guy's great at what he does. I don't think I'll ever get to that point, but The Rock would be that, I don't want to say unattainable, but the ultimate interview for me would be The Rock. And then also on that list, like I said, Christopher Lloyd, Randy Orton, and Batista. His next question, also a bit of a random question. Who was on your Mount Rushmore of comedians? Interesting question. I was either going to skip this or give you like 3 out of 4 answers, because I'm not like, I don't know if I've ever, actually I've been to one comedy show, I think. And yeah, I've been to a Jeff Dunham show before, right? That's a comedy show, right? I mean, he's a comedian. He does the fucking puppet thing. I completely forgot about Jeff Dunham. I was going to say, I haven't been to a lot of comedy shows, so I can't really say. Now, remembering Jeff Dunham, I would probably put him in my top 4. I'm not going to say these are the greatest comedians of all time. I'm just going off the comedians that I've heard a little bit of online, or that I'm just, mostly familiar with. So, like, for example, like Carlin and, Louis C.K. is a controversial name, of course. I'm not going to include them just because I haven't really seen a lot of their work. The 4 people that stand out, now that I remember Jeff Dunham, I would put him on my favorite comedians list, even though it's not a very high bar, because, again, I don't really, listen to a lot of comedy and stuff like that. But Jeff Dunham, I was going to say Bill Burr. I would probably put Dunham over Bill Burr just because I've been following Dunham longer, and I really liked, I haven't seen a lot of his, if he has any recent work at all. I haven't seen a ton of Bill Burr either, but anything I have seen from him is fucking funny. He's really funny. So Bill Burr I enjoy a lot. Jeff Dunham. Robin Williams, I honestly completely forgot about, because I only came up with 3 names initially, and then I had to kind of Google, like, what other comedians are there that I'm not thinking of, whose work I'm familiar with. Robin Williams was really fucking funny. I mean, just in general, but, like, it was right after he died. I was on a family vacation at the time, and my older brother looked up old clips of him doing stand-up from a long, long time ago, and it was really fucking funny. Robin Williams is great. I would put him on that list. The other 2 people I am the most familiar with as far as the stand-up I've seen from them is Eddie Murphy, and probably moreover than any of the other people combined, Dave Chappelle, actually. Dave Chappelle, I've seen a lot of his work. He's fucking hysterical. Eddie Murphy is amazing. That delirious stand-up act, first of all, would never fly today, obviously. But a lot of the shit he said is just, it would never, work with today's standards, and understandably so, I completely get that. But just for the time, it was fucking wild. I wasn't even around at that point, but I watched it for the first time a couple of years ago, and I was laughing my ass off. If you've never seen it, it's called Eddie Murphy Delirious. I got it for Christmas on DVD, but it was also on Netflix at one point. It probably still is, if I'm not mistaken, but it was really fucking funny. If you get easily offended by stuff, and again, there's nothing wrong with that, it probably isn't for you. There's a lot of, like, everyone is targeted. Every race, gender, sexual orientation, you name it, he fucking calls everyone out. And not for anything bad, he's just making jokes, but just Eddie Murphy in general, he doesn't really even have to talk about anything edgy in order to be funny. He's just really funny in general. So Eddie Murphy, Robin Williams, Dave Chappelle, who's amazing, Bill Burr, and Jeff Dunham would be among my favorite comedians that come to mind. No L from Facebook, their first question. I almost said YouTube because I wrote YouTube here in my list of questions here. Thoughts on the NXT Women's Tournament? I think I mentioned this last week. I got Tiffany Stratton going all the way. It was either going to be Roxanne and Cora in the finals or Tiffany and Lyra. And I figured it would be Tiffany and Lyra. I was kind of hoping it would be Roxanne and Cora. Tiffany winning the whole thing and winning the championship is perfectly fine. She was always my pick to win. I just kind of felt like the bracket should have been structured differently, so we could have gotten Roxanne and Tiffany in the finals. Lyra's good, but the fans just don't care about her. Like, Cora was attacking her on NXT last night. I caught up on the show earlier today, and the fans, a good portion of the audience, an audible minority, whatever it might be, they were fucking cheering for Lyra getting attacked by Cora Jade. So she needs more character development. Her matches haven't really wowed me so far. She was impressive in NXT UK, but we really just haven't seen a lot of her. I think Cora Jade is more of a complete package, as is Roxanne, and even Tiffany as well. So, anyway, I think Tiffany's winning the whole thing. The tournament's been fine. The matches have been good. I think Tiffany's winning the championship on Sunday, as she should. Speaking of Cora Jade, their next question was, should Cora Jade be called up to the main roster? Now, no. Because if it was now, then it's like, why not just call her up as part of the draft? I would wait a little bit longer. Honestly, Cora is someone that could definitely have a run at some point as the NXT Women's Champion. I think she deserves it. It would make sense. You can do that before she gets called up. I would rather see Roxanne get called up before Cora Jade. The problem with that, though, is that you're down 2 top baby faces in that division. You just called up Indy, and then to call up Roxanne too, you're losing 2 top baby faces in that women's division. So I wouldn't do that necessarily quite yet. And Lyra is not, she's just not cutting it right now. She's good, but she's just not that top baby face in the division like Indy was, and primarily how Roxanne has been for the last year or so. So I would not call up Cora Jade right now. At some point in the next 6 months after SummerSlam, maybe. After SummerSlam, possibly. I don't know if I would wait until the draft next year. That seems like it's a long time away. But listen, if Tiffany gets the championship now, it depends who beats her for it. But maybe it's Lyra again down the road. I mean, again, I don't really care about that currently right now, personally. But maybe Cora can then take it from that person. And then by that point, by the time she loses the championship, I mean, Indy didn't lose the championship. She got called up as champion, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But maybe by that point, it will be around WrestleMania season and draft period for WWE coming out of WrestleMania next year. So it honestly could end up being post-WrestleMania 2024, post-WrestleMania 40. We'll see. I would not call her up in the immediate future, though. I think she is needed more at the moment in NXT than she is on either Raw or SmackDown. Let's see. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine and on YouTube. Real Honesty with John Ritland. Check out his content, his great work. His first question was, so WWE hasn't exactly done the best job making the World Heavyweight Championship seem like anything other than a secondary belt, have they? Both Rollins and Styles have constantly referenced Roman, which I both do and don't get. I completely agree. Not that WWE has done anything inherently wrong. It's only been like a month since they announced the championship. Roman, yeah, I agree though. Rollins kind of calling out Roman in the interview on Raw. It wasn't even like an interview that was done for media. Like it was a fucking Raw interview. And they spent a decent period of time talking about Roman Reigns. And it's like, if this isn't building to a match at some point, then what's the point? You know, are we getting to a Rollins-Roman champion versus champion match, which would be very dumb anytime soon? Are you building to Rollins facing Roman for the Undisputed Championship, Universal Championship? Like, what's going on here? Like, the comments were good, and I'm glad it felt like they were real, because I'm sure they are. Even though, in storyline, it's not Roman's fault that people aren't getting opportunities. In storyline, he should be booked to defend the championship. But nonetheless, with Rollins and whatnot, yeah, it's or with the World Heavyweight Championship and whatnot, yes, it does feel like a secondary championship. Again, if it doesn't headline out of champions, that even more so makes it a mid-card world championship, a mid-card for the main event scene. Because when you have Cody and Brock, which should not even have been headlined the Backlash pay-per-view, but if you have that go on last, I mean, I'm sure the match will be good. That should not go on last. Even Roman and Solo versus Sammy and Kevin. That should be a great match. It could go either way, but it's the fucking tag titles. You don't main event, a pay-per-view at the tag titles unless the match is just so unbelievably great, which it should be a great match. But Rollins and Styles are 2 top talents to crown the inaugural World Heavyweight Champion. I mean, it's got to be the main event. So if they don't main event, that's a problem. So far, though, like I said, they haven't really done anything wrong as far as the presentation of the championship. The only thing they've done wrong is not take the belt off of Roman. I will say this every fucking week, and I won't go on for an hour about this, but the biggest issue that they have with the World Heavyweight Championship is that the Undisputed Championship still exists. If Roman lost at WrestleMania, he still could have split up the championships and rebranded one of them as the World Heavyweight Championship and could have ended up in the exact same fucking spot with the exact same card for the Night of Champions pay-per-view. I mean, Roman wouldn't be champion right now. You would probably have to crown a new WWE champion as well. I mean, but actually not really. I take that back. Roman and Solo could still be doing the tag team thing right now with the Usos, or rather with Sammy and Kevin on that show coming up on Saturday. You could still do that. Roman doesn't have 2 belts already, so maybe they win. Who knows? Who cares? You can still do that match. Styles and Rollins can still be for the World Heavyweight Championship on Raw, or SmackDown, whatever. And Cody and Brock can be for the WWE title. What a fucking concept, I know. So, I don't know. They didn't do that. What's done is done. I get it. But it really is important that they attempt to make the championship as important as possible going forward. Because when Styles and Rollins both call it like a secondary title, they're not fucking wrong, and it's not their fault. It's WWE for making it feel like one, for introducing a consolation prize, for introducing a consolation prize at a time where they don't really need one when they already have 2 titles on Roman Reigns. Just take one of them off of them, or both of them, and then split up the championships again. It's not really all that necessary. His next question: is it just me, or does this Double or Nothing card feel kind of off? Like the hype is there for a couple of matches, but much of it feels uninspired. Yeah, the build has not been good. The card itself, you're not talking about the build, you're talking about the card. The card is good. It's not a blowaway show whatsoever. Like I said earlier, I'm going to Battleground on Sunday, and that sounds ridiculous. Why the fuck would you go to an NXT show over Double or Nothing? It's not like, oh, I got to cover one or the other. I mean, it really just came down to the fact that if I was closer to Double or Nothing, or I was already going to that show, which I wasn't, I don't really attend the AEW shows. It's not a knock on the product, but I kind of cover the WWE pay-per-views more. I've been to a handful of WWE, or rather AEW shows, AEW pay-per-views. I will go again at some point. I would love to go back to Double or Nothing next year if it's in Vegas again, because that part of Vegas was great when I was there, a couple of years ago. But, what was I going to say? Oh, with Battleground, the only real reason why I'm going is because it's in Lowell. And what I was going to say was, because I'm missing Double or Nothing, I will catch up at some point on Monday, but I'm not like so pissed, like, oh man, I'm so mad I'm missing Double or Nothing. This feels like, as I think either you have said before, John, or someone else, it feels like a very filler show. A very filler show before they get to All In, before they get to Forbidden Door, before they get to All Out. Like all of those shows, the Canada shows even in July, Collision coming up in a couple of weeks, all feel bigger than Double or Nothing, which is a problem when Double or Nothing is supposed to be one of your premier pay-per-views. And I know Tony Khan has said in the past they're all equal shows, there's no WrestleMania in AEW. Sure, but it was your first ever pay-per-view 4 years ago. Exactly, I think 4 years ago tomorrow. And it doesn't feel important at all. And that's a problem. So, with that being said, I'm looking forward to the show. And there are several very good matches, but none that stand out, or at least not many that stand out. Like, oh man, I'm so pissed I'm missing this live. Like, I need to see this match. I actually fucking hated Anarchy in the Arena last year. I understand why they're doing it again this year. And it does make more sense to do that than a standard 8-man tag team match. I just thought that shit last year was completely fucking awful. But enough people liked it where they're doing it again. That's fine. The people in the match make sense. The stipulation I'm not a fan of. If it's anything like last year, yeah, I'm not a fan. But, there's that. The 4 Pillars match should be a great match in the ring. I don't think there's any other outcome but MJF winning, so I'm not overly, enthused or excited for it, really. Cole and Jericho should be good. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the card could be better. They didn't really put a lot of effort into getting people excited for the show, and now they're adding like a bunch of matches at the last minute that really have no business being on the show. Like, why is Jaden Taya even on the show? I mean, Taya's not going to win. Their first match wasn't great. It was good. The finish sucked. They haven't really feuded at all since then. That was over a month ago. People don't really care at this point. The Hardys Gun Club nonsense, who gives a shit? I mean, it culminated with Final Elation. Why are we still doing this? Dumb. Very silly. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to the show, but the card could totally be better. I agree. They definitely have had stronger shows and cards in the last year alone than what it looks like we have coming up on Sunday. That being said, some of the best shows are shows that people have low expectations for just due to the card or the build or whatever. So maybe it ends up being a killer show because of it. We'll see. His third question, non-wrestling related, but are you planning to watch the Little Mermaid live action movie this weekend or in general? I am. Not because I'm the biggest Little Mermaid fan ever, but I've seen the conflicting reviews. I don't have high hopes. I wasn't really excited for it anyway. Alexis was more excited for it than I was. I was going to see it regardless. I've seen a majority of the Disney live-action movies. I saw Cruella a couple years ago. I actually thought that was a great movie. I saw Lion King. Really liked it. Thought it was a good movie. I thought Beauty and the Beast was great. That came out 5-6 years ago. I will see Little Mermaid. What I have seen is not promising. I just saw Fast X, actually, just yesterday. Fantastic movie. Actually, the last couple of movies I've seen were all great. Guardians I've seen twice. Guardians was awesome. I thought there was another movie I saw recently as well. I saw the Super Mario Bros. Movie. about a month ago. Obviously, I talked about it. That was excellent. Fucking love that movie. I saw John Wick back in late March. That was an outstanding movie. I saw Cocaine Bear. I've seen a lot of movies in the last couple of months. I will see Little Mermaid. I thought Fast X was great. I will see the new Indiana Jones movie. I've said that before as well, I believe. I will be seeing that. I will probably see Flash. Transformers, I don't know. I will likely see Elementals, the new Disney Pixar movie. But as far as Little Mermaid goes, this weekend, no. I think I'll be busy this entire weekend because not only do we have a lot of wrestling on Saturday and Sunday, on Friday, actually, I forgot to mention this earlier, I'm going to a wrestling play, as bizarre as that sounds, but here in Connecticut, actually, it's a short-lived little run for a play called Masters of Puppets, and a couple of notable names are involved in the production. I actually interviewed someone from the cast last week to promote the event, but yeah, it's coming up over this weekend in the Connecticut area, and I'll be there watching it, whatever, on Friday. So I'll be going to that on Friday night. We have Night of Champions on Saturday afternoon. We're going to a graduation party for one of Alexis's friends on Saturday night. Like literally from the pay-per-view, I have to do work for the show for Night of Champions, wrapping that up immediately. And as soon as we're done, going to the graduation party. Then on Sunday is Double or Nothing in Battleground, but I'm only going to Battleground, so I'll be heading over to Lowell for Battleground soon after on Sunday, watching that show, headed back home. Memorial Day family stuff on Monday, and Double or Nothing catch up on Monday as well. So a lot of stuff coming up. I won't have a chance to watch it probably until either Tuesday of next week, maybe on Friday. Maybe earlier in the day on Friday, likely not, but possibly. If not earlier in the day on Friday, then either next week or the week after. But I will see it at some point, and ask me again in a couple of weeks, and I'll give you my thoughts. It will likely not be great. Let's just put it that way. Based off what I've seen so far from clips, trailers, reviews especially, they haven't been all bad. Most of them have been pretty average. I'm not exactly overly enthused, like I said earlier, but it hopefully should at least be good. That's all I'm really hoping for. At Iwago from Twitter, their first question was, when, and not even an if, as the result is not even in question, Gunther retains the Intercontinental Championship against Mustafa Ali at Night of Champions, do you see him defending the title against Matt Riddle next? I do. They set that up in the Battle Royal. I thought Matt Riddle might even actually win the thing. I was hoping Johnny Gargano would be built up for an opportunity at the championship, but he's just not even really on the show right now. I don't know if he's still hurt. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but Riddle and Gunther would make sense. I would not have Riddle beat Gunther, but you could do the match at Money in the Bank. That would make the most sense. I mean, they set it up in the Battle Royal. They had interaction again on Raw this week in that six-man tag team main event. They worked really well together. I've said this before, but Riddle, the first match I ever saw him have, and the first match I've ever seen of Walters as well, was actually they were against each other at a Progress show 6 years ago in the summer of 2017. And it was a kick-ass match. I don't remember really anything else about that show except for that match, but I remember that match and how great it was. So I'm looking forward to that eventual encounter between the two on the main roster for the championship. That would be a lot of fun. And yeah, that'll likely be at Money in the Bank. I would probably do that at Money in the Bank. I mean, I guess you could put Gunther in Money in the Bank or Riddle or both, and you could save Gunther and Riddle for SummerSlam. That's also possible, but I'm not sure if you want to stretch it out that far. His next question, what are your thoughts on how John Cena beat Batista in an I Quit match at Over the Limit 13 years ago? I remember that finish. I think that was 13 years ago yesterday, I'm pretty sure. When he hit the attitude adjustment on Batista, or actually even before that, he was about to hit the AA on Batista on top of the car through the stage, and Batista quit. And then Cena, like a fucking asshole, hit the move anyway on Batista. And legitimately, this was not a work. Batista, I think, broke his back in multiple places. Broke his ass bone or whatever. Like, he got legitimately hurt from that spot. So both storyline and legitimately just a very dumb thing to do. It was a cool visual, and people would have been pissed if Cena didn't do it. But not a very babyface thing to do. But Cena did beat Batista decisively. I mean, I say decisively in quotation marks for the second match, because he used fucking duct tape in the last man standing match. probably just to set up that rematch at Over the Limit. But he beat Batista on 3 straight pay-per-views, the same way that Batista beat Triple H on 3 straight pay-per-views to be established. Now, the only difference here is that Cena was already established in 2010. He really gained nothing from beating Batista that many times. But they did have all really good matches. I really liked that WrestleMania match. I liked the Extreme Rules match, the I Quit match, even the SummerSlam '08 match I thought was great as well. So, yeah, the finish was memorable. If nothing else, it was certainly memorable, even though it wasn't the most. Cena winning in non-babyface fashion was very characteristic of the Cena character at that point. Let's just put it that way. His next question: do you see the malevolent jerk face? In short, I was like, who the fuck is he talking about? And obviously, he's talking about MJF. Malevolent jerk face, MJF, whatever. Becoming the longest reigning AEW World Champion. I don't. I think in order to break that record, he would have to hold the championship, I think, until October. I mean, he could. He could, and he might. He has the amount of opponents to do it. You can go back to him and Darby at some point one-on-one. Him and Adam Cole. Eddie Kingston would be great, but Kingston's not even remotely near TV in AEW right now. He was in Ring of Honor the last time we saw him, and he was also currently hurt. So I think he got hernia surgery. So that's also an option if they want to explore that among other people. I think he'll probably, I would say he'll either lose it at All In or All Out. If he holds it until Full Gear, he will break the record. It's not impossible, but I'm just thinking, like, will he lose it at a pay-per-view like Full Gear? I guess that's possible, but there's also no one really on the horizon to beat him. There's a lot of contenders, but there's no one that I really look at and think, wow, this is a person that could beat MJF. So maybe he will hold it through the rest of 2023, and then, I mean, I don't know, the whole storyline that they're doing right now, whether he has legitimately re-signed or not, is that he's going to take the championship in a free agency. You don't really have that storyline if he's not champion. So I guess there is a pretty good chance that he breaks the record. I thought not. I'm going to still say no, because he'll have to be champion for another, like, 4 or 5 months, I think. And that might be a bit too long. But then again, he really hasn't had many title defenses already anyway. He's only beaten Ricky Starks and Bryan Danielson. The guy never fucking wrestles. He defended it once a month after he won it. And then he had no defenses until March when he beat Bryan Danielson, and that was almost 3 months ago. And he's only having his next defense on Double or Nothing this weekend. He probably won't defend it again until All In, and I mean, maybe a Forbidden Door. Probably not, though. Probably not again until the All In show in August, if I had to take a guess. So there's a chance. I'm going to say no, but I would not be surprised. And it doesn't really matter much either way. At noob_n_co TV, how do you rate the card for Double or Nothing this year, 1 out of 10? To me, I'm going with a 4. The build-up to the main event match is underwhelming. And we have a rematch for the AEW Women's World title where Toni Storm will face an injured Jamie Hayter. Nothing. I'm not really feeling this card, he says. I already kind of answered this earlier, but yeah, I would probably give it a 6. I would go higher than a 4 because it's not a bad card. By AEW standards, it might be a 4. AEW's had some killer pay-per-views, so that's the thing. Like, their weekly product is not consistently exciting. It never always will be, but there were more consistent, exciting stretches in the last few years than there has been in the last, 6 or 7 months, really since the Punk thing. I mean, even before the Punk thing, there were a string of some pretty boring shows last summer. They kind of lost their way after, Double or Nothing, I would say, in 2022. But anyway, they still had some great pay-per-views. Even if Dynamite wasn't must-see every week, the pay-per-views were always killer. So I'm expecting Double or Nothing to be great, but I'm not as excited for this show as I was for, honestly, even Revolution or Full Gear or All Out, Double or Nothing last year. I thought all of those shows had significantly stronger cards than what we have on paper for this year's show. Again, blame the build, whatever, and I'm sure the matches will deliver, but you want to sell people on the show. You want to sell people on it and get that buy rate up. To have a bad build and a bad card and then it exceeds expectations, I guess people could buy it after the fact, but you want people to buy it as it airs as well. That's really where the money is, as far as that sort of stuff goes. And I'm very curious what the buy rate's going to be. I'm sure it's going to be good, but I'm thinking, the build has sucked and it's not really that great of a card on paper. I mean, the tickets are not selling well at all. I mean, that's just fucking awful. So, I mean, I don't know. It has to be acknowledged, and I'm sure it will be a good show, but I'm not really feeling it either. I agree. I would go with a 6, though. I think the card on paper has potential. There are some really good matches happening. So I think it is higher than a 4 to me, but it's not like this kick-ass, must-see card that I need to see as soon as possible, which would bring it up to like a 7, 8, 9, or 10. His next question: if Bianca Belair is rumored to turn heel, then what was the point of Asuka turning heel in the first place? I might be a fan of Asuka, but WWE in its booking of her has been confusing since Triple H has been in charge, more than Vince McMahon's booking of Asuka. I mean, I could spend forever on this, but the booking of Asuka has been just mind-boggling. Really, her entire main roster run, but especially in the last year. I mean, she was gone for a little while. She comes back with Akana makeup, and then it's like, all right, cool. And then she loses the Rumble, which was fine because Rhea won, and that was the right outcome. She wins Elimination Chamber, and then the Bianca feud sucked. And they had a great match, but their initial feud sucked. And honestly, what we're even getting now isn't that much better because we're really not getting much aside from the fucking mist. It's garbage. It's been 2 weeks, but it's garbage. I'm sure the match on Saturday will be great, but as far as like, I know what you're talking about. I saw that same report that indicated that they might want to turn Bianca heel at some point, along with the Profits. I don't know if that came from a credible source, though. I know what you're talking about. I saw that same report. I don't know if that came from Fightful. I don't think it did, or PW Insider. I think that was just being floated around as an idea. And it's possible, but they have so much behind Bianca right now as the lead babyface in that division. I want her to turn heel as well. I feel like she could really benefit from that. She feels stale as champion. Like you said, why turn Asuka? They're just going to turn Bianca. They're probably not going to turn Bianca for a long time. At the very least, later on in the year. So you're thinking, oh, why would they turn Asuka in that case? Because they need a heel now. They need someone for Asuka, or rather for Bianca, to defend against in Night of Champions, and doing another babyface versus babyface match with Bianca and Asuka when it wasn't overly exciting the first time due to the build sucking. The match was great, but again, the build was awful. You had to change things up. Someone had to go heel, and because they're not ready to turn Bianca yet, they had to turn Asuka. So I get why they did it, and maybe when they turn Bianca at some point, if they turn Bianca, then maybe they could turn back Asuka. I don't know. But the problem is that Charlotte is also on that show. I would much rather have Bianca as the babyface in their inevitable feud than Charlotte. Charlotte as a babyface sucks. So honestly, I think it's going to be a long time before we see Bianca back as a lead heel on that division. Hopefully it comes at some point. It's been a few years now, but I think it's going to be even longer just because we're just in a position right now where they can't afford to turn her heel. When you have Charlotte as a heel, she was a babyface the last time she was around, but she's far better as a heel. And you turn Asuka, it kind of feels like they're building the division around a babyface Bianca and not prepping to turn her anytime soon, which is, it is what it is. There are third questions. So for the last couple of months on NXT, who's attacking the NXT women's division? Who's the mystery hooded figure? Blair Davenport, Stevie Turner, or a returning Mandy Rose? I'm going with Blair Davenport because she might attack Tiffany Stratton or Lyra Valkyria on Sunday. I'm thinking Blair Davenport as well. I think she might be the one talent from NXT UK that we haven't seen come over to NXT full-time. Everyone else, like I thought Mako hasn't come over full-time, but she did return and make a couple of appearances. Ilya's come back over. Noam Dar. Stevie Turner was around for a little while. Don't really know what happened to her. Gallus, Joe Coffey, everyone, Tyler Bate, they're all kind of in the NXT mix now. Anyone that they didn't fire from that brand from NXT UK. Blair Davenport was the only one. I don't know what the holdup is because she's been off TV since fucking September, since Worlds Collide. I'm not really sure why she hasn't been on the show, but hopefully we see her again soon. I'm going to guess it's her. I think it's definitely not Mandy Rose. If Mandy Rose was going to come back, doing that would be pretty silly. She would just hopefully get involved in the toxic attraction stuff, then as opposed to just beating up random women in the fucking parking lot. Why would Mandy even want to wear a sweatshirt anyway? What is she hiding? Like, is this storyline that she's fired? I mean, I guess, maybe, but that would be cool. That would be kind of a long shot, though. Stevie Turner I like a lot, but not enough people really care about her for that reveal to be really worth it. So I'm going to go Blair Davenport. Not that that many more people care about Davenport over Turner, but Davenport's more of a familiar face, more established than Turner is, and I feel like should be a good fit for that role. Last question, at Q_com. Will you be making the trip to New Jersey for the Wrestle Showcase? Maybe, we'll see. I am not that far from New Jersey. It's a couple hours away, but listen, if it's if it shapes up to be a good tournament / show and whatnot, I might have to make my way over there. But on that same note, to kind of give at Q_com a shout out here, tickets are on sale for Wrestle Showcase as of now. They went on sale just yesterday, actually. You can purchase tickets on Eventbrite. They're on their website. Follow him on Twitter, and also Wrestling on Premier Network. They put out the announcement yesterday. The tickets are going to be on sale. So check out all that stuff. Check out the show. I was not there for the first one in Chicago last year, but it looked like a fun time, and I might be able to attend this year. So it's coming up, I think, Labor Day weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So keep an eye out for that and purchase tickets now. And that's going to do it, guys, for today's edition of #AskGSM, episode 495 for May 24th, almost the 23rd, 2023. Thank you guys, as always, for checking out my questions or my answering of your questions. I appreciate it. Checking out the show. Be sure to send in a question to the show by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not in the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Enjoy the wrestling-filled weekend. Try to take a breath. Pace yourself. Don't go overboard. It's one of the biggest wrestling weekends all year. It's going to be exciting, so make sure you enjoy it. And have an awesome one. I'll catch your ass down the road.